I'm just going to share my screen so you can see the slideshow. A couple of clicks. And hopefully you can see the slideshow. Can you? Fantastic. Good. So this talk is about preventing premature death and disability. Or in layman's terms, how to live a longer, healthier, happier life. Okay. Over the many years of working as a doctor, one sees a lot of premature deaths and disability. And I'm sure we all have our own personal perspectives from various family and friends having various problems. So I think it is an important topic. And although what I'm going to tell you, you probably all say, well, I know that. The problem is implementation. It's putting it into place. And in a way, I'm hoping that this will trigger off people wanting to live longer, healthier, and happier lives. Okay? So for those who want to cut to the chase, here's a brief summary. There's more to come later on, but basically, remember, we've just got, in this life, we've only got one body. So we need to look after it and look after it so it lasts us well. Okay? Prevention is better than cure. We all know it, but we tend to think, actually, it's all right. The doctors will sort me out if I go wrong somewhere. Lifestyle is the key. I've heard many 100-year-old people talk about what their secret is about how they reached 100. And it's always about lifestyle, either what they've eaten, what exercise they do, whether they do yoga or whatever it is. It's never about their doctor having helped them, okay? It's never about that. Even if you sort out your lifestyle and you prevent things, but sometimes problems simply happen. And it's important to remember, if we catch a problem early, you have got vastly more options and the outcomes are always better if you catch the problem early enough, okay? Important to remember that. Now, we always start with some good news. So the good news is we're all living longer. Life expectancy is increasing. So here's a graph on the x-axis at the bottom there is the years going from 1840 all the way to 2020. Okay? And on the other axis, the y-axis, you have the age going from 35 up to 85. And as you see, from about 1840, since the statistics have been gathered, at that time, the life expectancy was around about 40 for men, about 42 for women. And as the years have gone on, there's been a steady increase, and now, this is 2016, men can expect to live to about 80, and women, it's 83. And in fact, in 2019, it hadn't changed very much at all because there's been a bit of a plateau since 2016 for various reasons. This might be affected by COVID-19, but we'll just have to wait and see over the next couple of years. But the good news of this is life expectancy is increasing. Okay, so what are the leading causes of death? This is 2020, and as we all know, it has been an unusual year. I hope everybody's noticed that. COVID-19 is right at the top. And in previous years, it hasn't been there, as we all know. The other causes of death are still present and still taking loved ones away. So things like dementia, then ischemic heart disease, which is heart attacks, angina, heart failure, such like. Then cerebrovascular diseases, things like strokes. And then chronic lower respiratory diseases. These are conditions like chronic bronchitis, emphysema, COPD. Following that is lung cancer, then influenza, pneumonia, then colon cancer, and then other things which are not so clearly defined. Um, and you may think, well, in amongst all of this, why is cancer so far down? It actually registers around about number 6. Um, this is the way the statistics are gathered. Cancer is divided into the various parts of the body. So you have lung cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, etc. And if you lump all of them together, is the next slide. It shows cancer jumps right to the top with, this is for women, for England and Wales. And it's lung cancer, breast cancer, pancreatic, colon cancer, etc., all joined up together, and it goes right to the top. Following that is dementia, and then heart attacks and strokes, etc. Dementia didn't used to be at the top there. Dementia used to be much further down, and heart attacks and strokes used to cause more deaths. But over the last few years, it has come up, and at the moment, number 1, well, after COVID-19. Just to look at the gender divide between males and females as causes of death. And it's just a little bit interesting that in men, it's mainly heart attacks, number 1, followed by dementia, then lung cancer, chronic chest disease, and strokes. Whereas in women, the top 2 have been swapped around. So dementia is first, followed by heart attacks, followed by strokes, chronic chest disease, and pneumonias. Just out of interest, just to... now let's talk about disabilities. This is a graph which shows, in summary, how with age disabilities increase. That's fairly clear cut. So this graph shows this starting from a young age, from 0 all the way up to 80. And on the y-axis, it's the percentage of people with disability going from 0 up to 70. And by 80, you get really 55, 60% of people having some form of disability. And you will see from the age of about 25 onwards, women have a higher rate of disability. So women live longer by 3-4 years, but they also have more disability. The reasons are not particularly clear, okay? What are the types of disabilities? Here's a graph which shows mobility as the number 1 reason for older people having disabilities. Mobility is the main problem. In what, 70% of them, followed by stamina, breathing problem, fatigue, followed by dexterity, then hearing loss, vision, memory problems, mental health problems. Just focus on the mobility. You will see women have more mobility problems than men do. And the next one, stamina, breathing, fatigue, is more in men than women. It may be to do with smoking habits. Men tend to smoke more. Men tend to have more chest problems, heart-related problems, whereas women tend to have more mobility problems. Now, the causes of disability in the older person. As we get older, our various systems start creating us problems. And one of the issues is musculoskeletal problems. So our muscles, our bones, etc., create problems. Now, when it creates problems, it's not fatal. It doesn't kill us, but it causes disability, which is why a lot of people with arthritis survive to a ripe old age, and arthritis is a main issue. wear and tear type of arthritis, osteoarthritis. People do get falls, they do get fractures, and this is quite disabling. It is related to the next item, which is dementia. That happens when the brain starts failing. Dementia is, as you know, is short-term memory loss. But other things happen to the brain as well, because the brain controls our balance. And as we get older, our balance goes. And therefore, people have falls. And when they fall over, they tend to fracture bones. So hip fractures are quite common because older people have osteoporosis, fragile bones. And when people fracture their hip, it causes a great deal of disability, and a lot of people never regain their mobility after a hip fracture. And for many, it shortens their life. We also have chronic chest problems. As we get older, our lung function reduces. People get heart problems. Heart failure is common in the older person, the older you get. Vision loss, hearing loss, mental health problems become commoner. This is partly because as people live to an older age, the friends and family pass away around them, which causes bereavement problems. There's also loneliness. As people get older, they get all these other disabilities and illnesses, and this leads to depression, anxiety, and mental health problems. Okay, so now we've seen, like a bit like Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, seen the enemy across the battlefield. And rather than getting anxious and worried about it all, we develop a strategy. Okay, so the first thing is COVID-19. We know it's the leading cause of death at the moment. It might remain so for the next year or so. Hopefully with the new changes, with the vaccines, etc., it hopefully will become something to be put away in the past. But for the moment, and for the next year, 2 years maybe, it's still hands, face, and space. So washing hands frequently, wearing a face mask, social distancing will all be very important. We need to carry on doing that. We now have these vaccines, the Pfizer vaccine, AstraZeneca vaccine, all very good, very effective, and very safe. And I would encourage all of you to have the vaccine. So hopefully all of you have already received your appointments and have had the vaccine. If you haven't, and if you're over 70, if you haven't received an appointment, then you can contact the 119 service and book your appointments, okay? Now, if unfortunately you do get some COVID symptoms like temperature, new persistent cough, any loss of smell, taste, sensations, then you need to self-isolate and contact the NHS 119 service, okay? And they will arrange a COVID swab and take it further from there. Important to remember that, okay? Now this next slide, hopefully, jumped through, will not apply to most of you, but these in the wider community create an awful lot of problems, an awful lot of death and disability. Okay, major risk factors. And these are all highly addictive things. And if any of you or people you know have these problems, they really should see their GP for some further advice to help them through these problems, okay? Exercise. Now, very few things are so wonderful and give so much joy, really. Exercise is great. And exercise is wonderful because not only, it is so good because it reduces all-cause mortality by 30%. All-cause mortality means death through all sorts of reasons, okay? Through heart attacks, through cancer, through dementia, through whatever you like to call it, suicides, car accidents. It reduces all-cause mortality. If only we could turn exercise into a tablet, we could give it to everyone. But unfortunately, we can't. But what we can do is to advise everyone to exercise 30 minutes a day for 5 days of the week. Okay? It should be easily possible. And this could be taking a walk, running, cycling, playing sports, whatever, doing yoga, tai chi, etc. It doesn't mean watching cricket sitting on the sofa, obviously. Okay? You need to participate in it. Certainly eat a healthy diet, okay, which is mainly plant-based. Minimize sugars, oils, and processed foods, okay? We could talk for hours about diet, but I won't. Keep the weight down. Skip past that, really, because I wanted to escape that. Um, Weight is a problem for a lot of people. I understand that it's not easy. But really, if people exercise regularly and ate a healthy diet sensibly, then I think weight should usually sort itself out, okay? Now, this next slide is all about brain health, okay? Because brain health is important. As you've seen, dementia is the #1 cause of death, of disability, strokes, etc. So we need to exercise our brains. And the best way of exercising our brains is simple. It's socialize. We are all social creatures. And even in this time of COVID and lockdowns, we can still socialize through Zoom like we're doing today, or through video calls, through telephones, etc. And another great way of socializing is volunteering. When we volunteer, it is good for us, it's good for society. We feel good about it as well. And it's very good for our brain health, okay? Even when people volunteer in an organization, in different organizations, you know, there's always personalities and differences, and just working through that is very good for brain health. So worthwhile doing that. Keep good company. This is very important because, you know, if you keep bad company, if there are people who, you know, if you're trying to stop smoking and all your company are all smokers, then it's going to be very, very difficult. So keep good company. Brain exercises. These people immediately think about Sudoku and crossword puzzles, which are great. And, you know, do that. That's fine. But, you know, we can do things in our normal day-to-day life. For example, on your way to the shops, if you go on your favorite walk or you're walking to your place of worship or whatever, take a different route. You don't have to go down the same route every time. Yeah? If you go to your work, if you're driving to work or driving somewhere, take a different route. It'll make your brain think in a slightly different way. If you enjoy cooking, then learn new recipes. Okay? Learn something new every day, whether it is on your mobile phone, get a new app, learn a new language. All of these things are possible, and these all count as brain exercises. Very good for the brain to be doing all of this. Meditation clearly is very good for our mental well-being. And this also reminds me of our culture. Our culture advises us various things which are very good things for our body and our brain. Like getting up early in the morning between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. is called Brahma Muhurat. I don't know if you people have heard this, Brahma Muhurat. So wake up early. It's very good. On waking, you drink warm water. That's very good because it rehydrates your brain and your body. Doing pranayama practice, very good for the chest and the lungs, because as we get older, our lungs, the effectivity, the function of the lungs reduces as time goes on. And by doing pranayama practice, it improves it. yoga, excellent. We also advise intermittent fasting. Now it's coming into vogue now. And, you know, in our culture, we've been doing it for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Okay, so plug for a dentist. Dental checks are very important. People who have good dental hygiene have reduced rates of heart problems. Now, this sounds unusual, but when people have good dental hygiene, they have reduced inflammation. When people have bad dental hygiene, they have increased inflammation in their bloodstream, and therefore it results in heart problems. Also, when you have dental problems, you're more likely to get toothache and difficulty in eating, therefore nutritional problems, and your muscles deteriorate, etc. happens. Optician checks, very important, because we've only got one pair of eyes, and opticians pick up problems quite early on. Glaucoma, macular degeneration, cataracts, all of these things can be picked up and treated fairly early. Hearing problems are very isolating. So if people do develop hearing problems, do see your GP and get referred for hearing aid. It's very useful. Vitamins. Vitamin D is very important for our BAME population because we've got pigmented skin, and at this time of the year with the winter, we run low on vitamin D, and we only need to take some supplements. Everyone should be taking vitamin D, and you can buy this over the counter in supermarkets, etc. B12 is very important for vegetarians and vegans. And this again is, you can buy this in supermarkets, shops, etc. Okay. Now this slide probably doesn't apply to you if you have certain medical conditions like heart problems, blood pressure problems, diabetes, etc. But you know, if you don't have any problems and you hardly see your GP, then it's worth seeing your GP, particularly if you're over the age of 40, 45. See your GP about once a year for what is called a Q-risk score. What is Q-risk score? It's a computer algorithm. So it's a computer program which works out your risk of getting heart attacks and strokes over the next 10 years. Okay? Now they gather, the GP or the primary care service gathers various risk factors. Some of them can't be changed. Things like age, your gender, family history, other illnesses that you may have, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, etc., ethnicity. They also collect modifiable risk factors, things which can be changed, like weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, smoking habits. And what the GP will do is to pump all this into the computer. They'll get a risk score. And if that shows that something needs to be done, then they will advise you. And usually it's regarding weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, smoking habits, etc. But it may be also lifestyle things, the things that we talked about earlier on. Okay, so I talked about sometimes problems occur anyway. Okay, so NHS does screening appointments for the older person. There are bowel cancer checks, breast cancer screening checks, abdominal aorta. Well, abdominal aorta is a large blood vessel within the abdomen, which, as people get older, particularly in smokers, they can get larger and create lots and lots of serious problems. And a scan is done. This is in men. A scan is done at the age of about 65. And you know, when you get these appointments, bowel checks, breast screening, the abdomen aortic aneurysm checks, do keep these appointments. When I was working, got so many people not bothering to go for these checks, and they're so important because we can pick things up so very early on before you get any proper symptoms. So this also reminds me that if people do get any concerning symptoms, like blood in the stool or blood in the urine or a persistent cough with shortness of breath, all these type of things, which might indicate early signs of cancer or something, then go and see your GP, get it checked out. I mean, most of the time it may be nothing serious, but things get picked up earlier. Okay. Now, this is a particular bugbear of mine, is prescribed medication. So when a lot of medication is being prescribed on a long-term basis, whether it's for blood pressure, for heart problems, for prevention problems, cholesterol tablets, etc. If you don't know the reason why a particular medication has been prescribed, talk to your doctor, talk to the pharmacist, and they'll tell you why the prescription has been given to you. If you think you're getting side effects from it, then do talk to the pharmacist or the GP, and they will either put your mind at rest that it's not causing side effects, or maybe it is causing side effects. They'll change the medication. What you mustn't do is just leave the tablets off and keep quiet and not tell anyone, because otherwise you'll run into problems. Okay? Because simply, if it is for blood pressure, then blood pressure goes up. If it's for cholesterol lowering, then the cholesterol goes up. You end up with bigger problems. Okay? Vaccinations. Hopefully, people have had the flu jab for this year or for last year, 2020. We've talked about the COVID vaccinations. Do have the COVID vaccine immunization. I know we are not allowed to travel abroad at the moment, or it is restricted. But eventually, when we are able to travel abroad, don't forget, you need to have vaccinations and malaria tablets and all that type of thing. So do remember that. So basically, in summary, we can live longer, healthier and happier if we sort a few things out, improve our lifestyle, exercise regularly, eat a healthy diet. We need to keep our brain active, have dental checks, eye checks, and hearing checks. Q-risk by the GP, keep screening appointments, and have vaccinations. Okay, so I hope you all have a long, healthy, happy life. Thanks for listening. And keep your questions easy, won't you? So let me stop the share. There we go. If anybody wants to ask a question, you just unmute yourself.
Bhaskar, can I ask one? Sorry, you said earlier on about life expectancy, the curve. I mean, did you read anything? What are the sort of examples of things that might be I mean, apart from COVID at the moment, why is it curved off, do we think?
Oh, look, it happened in something like 2016. So when that graph came to an end, it was already starting to flatten out a little bit, and it's flattening out. People have blamed all sorts of things. That was a sort of time that austerity measures were brought in. And this was not just here, but throughout Europe. It was through the financial crises and all of that. And the funding to the health service was reduced. I suppose at some point it has to plateau out. One can't keep on living longer and longer and longer. I suspect things would be catching up with us as well. Obesity, there's an epidemic of that, and that is catching up with us. There's only so much that medication can actually do. And I'm sure you've noticed this with some patients, that you can only go so far with their blood pressure tablets and their diabetic tablets, and at some point you have to tell them, look, you've got to do something about your weight and exercise and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Is data available for ethnic minorities? This kind of data from the UNS.
Sorry, say that again.
Is the data available for ethnic minorities? This of age, I know it won't go back to the 1920s, but more recent years.
You mean life expectancy?
Yeah.
Okay. This is an average. This is over the whole population. Okay, I don't know the figures for ethnic minorities, but I would bet that it's much lower than that.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, we all know of, certainly amongst us Asians, the issues, genetic issues, I think, to do with diabetes and heart disease. They're very prevalent. We tend to get more. So it'd be interesting to see if data were available.
Yeah.
So the suggestions that you put forward about diet and exercise are very valid, I think, as we get older.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
So yeah, Bhaskar bhai, I can check with Priya because she works at the ONS. She might be able to get some of that data.
Yeah. Okay, that'll be good. So one can share it.
Yeah.
Something else that's come to my mind or my attention recently is this fake information, certainly about the COVID and vaccination. And it's in the news everywhere. Today, it's been on Twitter, it's in newspapers, of low take-up of the vaccinations amongst ethnic minority communities. Is to emphasize that, yeah, don't believe what you see on the internet, on social media. Follow the advice of the professionals and take the vaccine. I know you mentioned that, but on a wider issue, we are aware of people buying stuff off the internet, medication off the internet, because they say it's had 5-star reviews, or so many people are taking it, of not just anti-COVID medication, but all sorts of medications for healthy lifestyle, whatever. And people just need to be aware of that.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I would resist buying anything which is off the internet, which is not from valid sources.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I know about all this fake news, and one just despairs. I don't know what people get out of it. And I tend not to refer to it because it just perpetuates the whole thing. And, people talk about all sorts of things, all sorts of claims which are being made. And these things sometimes enter into people's brains and it's difficult to get it out. And I think just giving a positive message that the vaccines are very safe and very effective should be good enough. We did send out, through the Vedic Society, we've sent out an email that these are all vegetarian, vegan, all the rest of it. There's a lot on there. I can't remember it all now. But we did say all of it in there. And hopefully people have taken that on board. Yeah, I certainly have had my vaccine. All of my family have had it. My mother has had it. She's 86. That's the only way of actually saying to people, look, all of my family, all of my loved ones have had it. So it is very safe. Yeah.
Bhaskar, you mentioned this Q risk something. Can you tell us a little bit more? Or
okay.
Is this something which is only kept by the doctor? Is it not available to us as a patient?
The thing is, you would, I think, you can go online and you type in QRisk3. QRisk3 is 2018 because it's a computer algorithm which has been developed by this particular company. It used to be from University of Sheffield or Nottingham, sorry, University of Nottingham, the group there which developed it. And every so often they will update it. And now we've got QRisk3. And you can Google that, QRisk3, and it'll come up with a thing. But you'll need to know your cholesterol level. You need to know your blood pressure. And I suppose you can easily contact your GP, have the blood test done. and the GP can work it out for you. But once you work out your Q-risk score, somebody needs to advise you what to do with it.
The GP advise you if he's done it.
That's right. Well, this is why you need to go to the GP for them to do the Q-risk score rather than you doing it on your own.
No.
And then thinking, what should I do about this?
So I'll have to bore him with that question, really. It's got to come from me rather than the GP giving us the information.
Yeah, what you do is you contact the GP about once a year and say, could I have my Q-risk score, please? And he'll say, yes, okay. Have this blood test done to check your cholesterol and come back and I'll check your blood pressure, or see the nurse who can check your blood pressure, and he'll pump the stuff into the computer and up comes a score and he can advise you on that.
Can I ask you another question about your eye health and hearing? I've got wet macular degeneration in my left eye. The right eye has got the dry. So I don't know whether there's anything one can do apart from my having to go and have injections regularly every 8 weeks or so. That's regarding the eye. And slight deterioration in hearing. Anything one can do to improve?
Any special exercises one can do at home?
As regards the hearing, that's easy. Sorry, but there isn't. As far as I know, there's nothing you can do with age-related hearing problems. Okay, you certainly need to be referred for a hearing aid, and that will help you.
Which I've done.
Okay. With your eye problem, as I think you've gone past the stage of prevention. There's no harm in carrying on with all the lifestyle advice, but certainly carry on going to your eye doctors who will give you the injections and advice. I think you're in good hands there.
Yeah, I'm doing that already.
Okay. And I'm sure my GP colleagues will agree with me there.
Thank you.
Yeah, aye.
Okay, and I should have said this right at the beginning, that all the advice that I've given assumes that you're all fit and healthy. And if you have any medical problems, then do consult your GP or somebody rather than carrying on my advice. Don't come back to me, will you? Okay, Surendra Bhai is asking a question. I'll unmute.
Low blood pressure. If I have low blood pressure, any chance of one getting any symptom of heart attack or anything like that?
No, not well.
Good thing.
Depends on how low your blood pressure is. If you have low blood pressure, and low blood pressure is systolic of 100 over less than 100 and less than 60. If you don't feel any symptom, no dizziness or anything, then we don't really worry about it.
I think about 79/125 was my last score.
So 125, and okay, that's reasonably good actually. I wouldn't worry about that.
No. Thank you.
Rashmi, about the hearing side, basically with the age you get what is called sensory neural deafness. Okay, that's what you have. And for that, there is no treatment at all, except using the hearing aid to help the situation out. But if somebody has got some conductive deafness, which means there's some problem with the say, fluid in the ears and all that, then they can put the grommets and that sort of thing to improve. But that is usually in younger population. So your age and my age, if there's any hearing problem, we have to live with it and get hearing aid if you prefer to. I have preferred not to have one. I'm already deaf in one ear, right from the age of 8, and I enjoy that deafness because I can sleep peacefully.
Thank you.
Even the earthquake and storm doesn't bother me.
He was working in the ENT department for many, many years, so take his advice.
Yeah, yeah. I've been to his son's practice in Eastleigh,
Nikki.
taking care of my
Fantastic.
hearing aid and tuning and all that jazz.
Now, Surendra Bhai wants to desperately ask a question. So you need to unmute yourself. Surendra Bhai, if you click the...
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm on now.
Yes.
Regarding this COVID vaccine, in our community, even taking 2 doses, still there are some death. Why is the death in our community more, or do you have any figure that why does it happen actually in Asian community?
Okay.
With 2 doses taken and still they die.
Yeah.
So there must be some reason behind it, or the vaccine didn't work with patient or whatever it is, you know.
Okay. Let me try and answer that.
Right.
With the vaccine, when it's given, it was given mainly in the older population first, and if they've had 2 vaccines, they are probably in the older age group. Okay. Now remember, in that sort of age group, people do pass on through all sorts of reasons.
All my friends actually died, 4 or 5 of them. They are between 70 and 80.
Okay.
And I was surprised, even after taking 2 doses, people can die.
Yeah. Okay. It doesn't prevent death.
Right.
Vaccine prevents at least 90 something percent of COVID infection. Doesn't prevent 100%. Okay. And it doesn't prevent death through other reasons. So people can still get heart attacks and strokes and all the rest of it. Okay. And remember, this is the age group where people do pass on. They've got a high rate of death. Because, you know, as you saw in the life expectancy chart, people expect to live to roughly around about 80. So people passing on at the age of around about 80, it's not surprising. I'm sorry, but you know, that's life, isn't it?
Well,
And
the expectancy, as you said, after 80, it's even with the 2 dose, the people, they're scared taking second dose, whether it is giving some boost to the immunity or whatever it is, you know. But there are some cases happen, even the nurse has given the injection and in 5 minutes the patient died.
okay. I haven't heard of these.
Right.
And they would be reported to the central authority, the MHRA. And up to now, because they've given out over 15 million doses, they haven't found any significant side effects. Certainly we all
my friend, actually, they are really scared of taking the vaccine because even taking the vaccine 2 doses, people can die. It's better to be a natural death than going for the vaccine.
Yeah. Do you know what they died of?
Well, they died actually with the death certificate says with the COVID-19.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes.
Yeah. But the person was suffering with diabetes, high blood pressure, all that sort of thing. So as you said, it could be some other factor which is affecting the life immunity.
Yeah, yeah. And you see, the COVID-19 is written on the death certificate because people run a swab on them. And if the swab shows COVID-19, they duty bound to put it there on the death certificate.
That's right. Well, people are scared of taking second dose even.
I don't think you should be scared of, I think one should be more scared of not taking it and catching the virus, because if you do get the virus when you haven't got any immunity, then you're going to end up on the intensive care unit.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm going to go for the second one. I've taken the first one.
Okay.
But the second dose in America, within 3 weeks. In UK, it's 3 months, which is a very long period, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
It should be cut down.
I think it's a different strategy that the UK government has taken.
Right. Okay.
And there's some evidence to show that they are doing the right thing, and WHO have backed them up, because they've said that by delaying it, the immune system has, I think they've got, the younger people may be able to advise me, but there are memory cells and T cells, and they get charged up properly with the first jab. And so if you delay it, the second jab at about 10 to 12 weeks works better.
Oh,
That's the theory.
yes, thank you. Thank you.
Oscar,
Okay.
bye. Just one last question. We hear a lot about conventional medicine or synthetic medicine. What's your take on like sort of culture, in the sense that, like Ayurveda, should we use that to supplement the medication that we're taking at the moment, or because there's no real evidence to back it up? And I guess everyone is different, so you know, someone might take or make some adjustments to their lifestyle or eat certain foods, and it might work for them, but it might not work for the next person. Should we rely on Ayurveda?
Well, I am going to be biased. Okay, so I'll tell you, you know, where I come from, because I have been trained in modern medicine, in, as the Indians would call it, allopathy, rather than Ayurvedic medicine. I think Ayurveda in general gives good lifestyle advice. As regards the treatment of it all, you know, why don't they do the various studies and bring stuff out which has got evidence behind it? If they do that, then I would have no problems in promoting it. But at the moment, most of it hasn't got any backing. If it has, fine. It doesn't at the moment, so I can't back it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, any last questions? Or shall we call it a day?
I was just going to say, on that note though, Hanish Bhai, what you're saying, I think normally people would advise in the UK that you take your medicines that you're prescribed by your GP here, and as long as your Ayurvedic medicine doesn't interfere with your Western medicine, modern medicine, and it doesn't do any harm, then, because I know my dad is forever looking for Ayurvedic medicine, you know, from an Ayurvedic doctor. So it is difficult, I mean, especially for Bhaskar and people like Bhaskar and Pankaj Bhai and that possibly that aren't trained in Ayurveda, but they do say you mustn't compromise it by stopping your Western medicine, which is doing you good.
I think there's a problem, because if you start taking other stuff, it might interfere without you realizing it, and the Ayurvedic doctor may not know all the ramifications of their prescribing stuff. Okay, so it creates a major problem. And you know, you go to, and you know, it's like too many cooks spoils the broth, and you run into major problems.
We do live in the same house and we do talk. it's just this conversation, that's all.
Keeps you busy.
Okay.
Well done, Bhaskar.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
And Priti won't be living in the same house for long now.
We'll have a talk on retirement next
Thank
month.
you.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bhaskar. Bye.
Well done.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Your community service.